Week with Sabir. In today's hot seat is Kevin Thompson. He's the co-founder of Tribe for Leaders and creates positive change on a global scale by facilitating valuable connections between influential entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs who are making a major impact in our world. He's actually known as the conduit of trust for almost 2 decades, and the introductions he's made have been worth millions. When you have him in your corner, you're only 1 to 2 degrees away from anyone you'd possibly want to meet or do business with. I really like that, Kevin. Very nice to meet you, Kevin, and welcome to the show.
Same, Sabir. My pleasure to be here.
So before we get started, I mean, I always ask my guests because every one of my guests is a superhero. I want to know your backstory. How did you? Yeah, like Spider-Man got bit by a spider and became, depending on which multiverse. Tell me Kevin Thompson's backstory.
So I'll tell you, I was in FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, when I was in high school. And that's where I got the entrepreneurial bug. I was planning to go to college and study business. At the end of my 10th grade year, my father passed away. And so those plans were off the table. Mom couldn't afford to do that. Ended up joining the Army for 4 years. Came home from the Army, still feeling like, okay, I want to get money together to start my own business, because that was my thought process at that time. And I'm from Seattle. My buddy Scott says, Kev, you should go down to Fisherman's Terminal in Seattle, get yourself a job on one of those fishing boats, go to Alaska. Those guys make a ton of money. And so that's what I did. I spent the next 7 years. You ever seen that show, The Deadliest Catch? I don't know if you've ever seen that before.
I think I've seen maybe an episode or two. Yeah.
Okay. So that is very accurate depiction of that job. And most people, I seldom talk about this now, but I spent 7 years working in that industry, working on Alaska's Bering Sea. And that was they call that the most dangerous job in the world. But that's how I got money to start my first business, which for me was a cleaning and restoration company. And I was not in that business long term. I'd like to say I'd had some grandiose vision of how I wanted to use that business to impact people's lives. It wasn't. I just thought, well, I can make money doing this. And it was not a lot more than that. And through that decision, though, I met a gentleman by the name of Joe Polish, and he really taught me marketing and helped me completely turn that failing business around. Him and I are still friends to this day. That relationship led to the work that I do today. Maybe we'll dig into that a little bit more. But for somebody like myself who places so much value on relationships, the relationship that I've had with Joe Polish all these years, from 1997 until now, is that's a relationship that just means a whole lot to me. Joe is an incredible person and has had a profound impact on my life.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I have a few people like that in my history that were phenomenal presence in my life. Like when they appeared and in my life, they completely changed the trajectory of my career.
Yeah.
And then I mean, from a mentorship standpoint, like, mentoring, getting that guidance and stuff like that, because not many people do that, so getting the right person that you can rely on, that's a tremendous help, and it's incredible how the universe kind of brings that person into your life. I mean, you said that your challenge was the school was an issue. You went into military, came out, you were handed something that was broken, right? Yeah. It's something, it's like, there's a saying, I'm going to get it wrong. I always get all these sayings wrong. It's like, Mother Nature throws first gives you the test, and then the lessons come afterwards.
That's right. That's
so
right.
You were given the perfect storm, and then what came out of it, I think, defined the rest of your life,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now getting into this 7-figure, 8-figure kind of connections that you make, I'm sure that now it has become like riding a bicycle, right? It's second nature to you.
Yeah.
We always want to know the first one. How was the first one? How easy was it? How did you come about to it? Was it intentional or was it an accident? So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the first one, and it's really cool because I can actually share these two gentlemen's names. The first one would have been about 10 years ago. I was having a conversation with my friend Brian Kurtz, who at the time, he was working with Marty Edelston at Boardroom Reports. And Boardroom is a huge direct mail company. And they were trying, excuse me, to figure out the Google AdWords platform. And they were having real challenges. Now, that's not their forte. And Brian was telling me that they were really challenged with this. And I was like, well, gosh, you should get a hold of Perry Marshall, him and his team. That's what they do. That's their thing. They can totally help you with that. And he's like, you know Perry? And I said, yeah. So I can connect you with Perry. And so I did. I shot an email to connect the two of those guys. And Perry's team did, in fact, help Brian and the guys at Boardroom with the Google AdWords platform. But beyond that, Brian and Perry became great friends. And about a year later, they held this event called the Titans of Direct Response. It was a big live event. Lots of entrepreneurs flew into, I believe they did it back in Maryland and Washington, D.C. area. And lots of entrepreneurs flew in from all over the country to attend this event. And the first day of that event, I'm getting text messages and Facebook messages from people in the audience at that event talking about, hey, Brian and Perry are on stage right now talking about you in a really good light, talking about how you're the guy that originally connected them. And my friend Paul, in addition to his message he sent me, he was like, Kevin, he's like, one never knows where a well-planted seed will sprout. And that's when it really got me thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I had a business where I just got to do that all the time? And so that's what, for me, planted that seed and got me thinking about it. And today, these years later, that has now become a reality, and it's been a pretty amazing experience. And like you said, it's also come with its share of lessons as well.
Yeah, so let's share the early lessons, not the more advanced ones, but the early lessons. What were the first, let's say, 3 things that you learned?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really so. Like in that conversation with Brian, I love talking with entrepreneurs about what they're working on, what's got them excited, what challenges they're dealing with. Because I'm always looking, well, do I know somebody who can help them? And just by being of service to people, just by having a conversation, asking questions of people, and be genuinely interested in hearing what they have to share, and then even asking clarifying questions around that, we get to, and I didn't realize this back then because I've always just been this way. I'm talking with entrepreneurs. But what I've come to realize is that when we are that way, we give them a gift. We give them a gift that is very rare, which is the gift of feeling seen, heard, and understood. And we don't have to worry about talking about ourselves, because you know what? Nobody us and what we do or anything else. Anyways, until they know how much we care about them, until they have this experience of how we make them feel. Now they're like, I want to talk with you more about what you do. And so that's been a huge lesson. Another big lesson is appreciation. And I will just let you know that being genuinely appreciative of people will open almost any door you can possibly imagine, just by being genuinely appreciative of other people.
That's definitely, I mean, the thing is, people forget what exactly you did for them. Believe me. I mean, I've had conversations with people that I may have worked with 15 years ago, 20 years ago. They remember how I made them feel.
That's right.
I was at a low in my point, and at that time on my life, nobody appreciated the work I did. You were the only one that listened to me and gave me guidance, right? that it's the feeling. It's not, if I ask them like, what exactly did I do for you? I'm sure 100% they would not remember exactly what I did for them.
Yeah,
It's how they felt at that moment in time, how they were, what they were going through, and when you appeared, what did you do for them? Like the outcome of it, not necessarily exactly what it was.
yeah, yeah.
So you do this first connection, right? And on stage, there are some name drops, and your name was dropped between those two people, and you start getting texts and messages and stuff like that, right? You say that, oh, this, I could be doing this on a full-time basis, right?
Yep.
When does it go from one time, maybe it was a fluke, maybe it was a great idea, to let me try to repeat this 2 or 3 times before it becomes a 40-hour work week?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
That's not overnight. That's never overnight. That decision is a journey.
You'd like to. It would be awesome if I said, "Well, I had that experience, and then me, and I'm like, I want to do that," and just figured out how to do it. No, it didn't happen that way. And in fact, I did not really start action until 2017. So it was like there was a good 5-6 year gap in there where I will be completely candid here, Sabir. A lot of that was self-induced because even though I had that great experience with Perry and with Brian and stuff, the thought of having that as my business model and that be what I get compensated for, I was like, man, there's nobody else that I know doing anything like that. So who the heck do I think I am to start doing it? There's a whole lot of other people I know who I thought, well, Joe Polish is one of those guys. I thought Joe was a world-class connector. Well, by contrast to Joe, man, in my mind, I didn't match up. I thought Joe was like, who the heck do I think I am? Then, Joe's the guy. And, heck, Brian Kurtz is a brilliant connector. And so all of this stuff combined with just, man, sometimes we can be brutal to ourselves. We are our own worst critic. I have definitely been guilty in the past of that. And so that was a lot of it. But yeah, there was definitely a delay in actually making that business happen. Fortunately, I had another business at the time that was producing revenue, but it took some time for sure. But I loved making connections for people. It just took some time to figure out the monetization piece and do it in a way that was in alignment with who I am, that didn't feel weird or clunky or whatever, that just was in alignment that like I feel good about, they feel good about, so that it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, figuring out the mechanism of the framework of how it can work, that's the technical part of it, right?
Yeah.
But how much do you think was it self-doubt versus imposter syndrome?
Good question, Sabir, because self-doubt versus imposter syndrome, because there is definitely not so much now, but in the past, definitely imposter syndrome. Well, because kind of alluded to talking about Joe Polish. Joe Polish, and if I looked on the scale, here's Joe and here's me way down here, and so
people will figure it out. People will figure it out that I'm an imposter.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right, and that I don't have, many times, well, a lot of times. Well, I mean, I work with a lot of 8-figure plus entrepreneurs that they're doing sizable revenue in this. My business has, so for me, it was like, well, they run businesses so much bigger than mine. Who do I think, they're going to figure out, they're like, I'm not even in their ball league, that I'm not even playing on the same game field as them. And it took some time to work through that for sure. But yeah, so there was, if I had to put a figure to it, I would say a lot of what stopped me and slowed me down and slowed down progress, it was 50-50. It was that imposter syndrome as well as that self-doubt, just not having confidence in my own abilities, if you say.
So when did the confidence build? After the second time, third time, fifth time, when that you felt like, oh, you know what, I can ride this bike. This is pretty easy.
Yes. So as far as making the connections go, that happened pretty quickly because I was just naturally good at that, and I loved doing that because, quite honestly, when I do that, Sabir, people like me, and I like to be liked by people, and I suppose in some ways I can flex a little bit because people are like, you can connect me with so and so, wow, and I'm like, yep, I can do that. and so there's some of that too, and but now I think what I've come to realize is that getting compensated for it, that was the big thing. And what I had a good friend of mine that was one single conversation at a hotel lobby bar in Texas. He just asked me a question, and I was like, wow, that's it right there. And he's like, Kevin, he's like, what if, he's like, are you cool if with just saying, hey, if I connect you with so-and-so and it leads to revenue being produced, would you be opposed to sharing some mutually agreed upon percentage of that with me? And he was like, can you ask people that? Is that okay with you? How does that sit with you? And I'm like, yeah, I could totally do that. Wow, that's easy. And so I don't know how many times I have asked that question now, and that happened in 2017. I don't know how. So that's been a few years now. I don't know how many times I have asked that question of people and entrepreneurs since then. It's been a lot of times, and not once has anybody said, nah, I wouldn't be open to having that conversation, Kev. Everybody has said, yeah, I'm open to having that conversation with you and exploring that.
Definitely. So you start 2017, 2018, 2019, right? And then the whole world decides to surprise us with a tiny little bug, right? The whole world goes into lockdown. Every business, every guest that I've had, they have talked about the pandemic, and they've talked about how it affected them personally and professionally, and how it impacted their business. How did it impact this relationship business that I'm sure that, I don't know if you were wining and dining them, or you were just talking on the phone or WebEx or Zoom, versus now it was completely virtual. You couldn't meet in person anymore. You cannot wine and dine. So how did it impact you?
So yeah, in 2017, I started hosting these in-person events, intimate events, with a maximum of 15 entrepreneurs. In fact, I did the first two, August of 2017 and September of 2017. I hosted those two events right here in my home, right on the other side of this wall here. And I had 15 entrepreneurs fly to my home here in Seattle for those two events. And from there, we went on to do a lot more events. So when the pandemic hit, I was essentially, a big portion of my business was the event business. And we had an event scheduled for March of 2020.
Perfect timing.
Yes. So that event did not happen. I had to refund people's monies and all of that, and we. I'm so grateful to my partner Jules Duncan, because she was the one that really kind of helped me see the path through that and figure out next steps. And we did. We switched to virtual. Zoom became a really valuable tool in my world in March of 2020, and has been ever since. and we completely switched to virtual, and we created this community called Tribe for Leaders and grew that. And because of the pandemic, that grew very quickly, very quickly. And we were really able to, so the pandemic, on one hand, it shut us down on the live event side, but because of technology, we had another avenue. We just had to pivot a little bit, and we had another avenue that we started a whole new revenue stream. And of course, now we're back to being able to do both. And so but yeah, there was definitely a pivot period because of the pandemic, no doubt about it.
It's funny. I come across so many businesses that were so completely in-person, physical businesses before the pandemic. And during the past 2 years, they learned about this new channel completely. It took them 20 years, in my opinion, but they pivoted to digital, and it opened up a different avenue for their business. And some of those businesses that I come across, they have not gone back, even though the pandemic rules of meeting in person and stuff like that have been laxed now. They said, oh, you know what? I really like what's happening here. I'll give you an example. Therapists, psychotherapists and therapists, right?
Yep.
They realize that rarely, like in a small segment of their patients, they need to meet with them in person. But majority of them, 95%, they could do it virtually. There is no need for them. And they could move from one client to the next, back to back, like very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? There's no inefficiency of checking out and this and that and whatever. Payments, keeping appointments, became a lot easier, for them. That's just one example of a kind of a service type business, not just e-commerce. I mean, e-commerce skyrocketed during this period, and a lot of companies that were not doing e-commerce actually helped quite a few of them during this pandemic to actually turn them into an e-commerce company. But I think in your case, coming back to what you shared, I think one other fundamental change that happened in your business during the pandemic, from what you just told me, it was no longer restricted to 15 people who could actually travel to your venue physically. I could be sitting in Singapore. I like your messages that you share on social media or LinkedIn or wherever I find you. And then I say, oh, you know what? I want to be part of this Tribe for Leaders. I could join you from Singapore as long as I have a credit card out and I can pay for it. I'm part of it,
That's right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's 100% true. And, I had used Zoom a little bit before the pandemic, but I have become intimately familiar with using Zoom since March of 2020. and I don't know how many Zoom calls that I have been on, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Zoom calls over the last 3 years. And I'll tell you, and like you said, Sabir, I mean, we have members in our community that I have one person who they used to do live events, big live events, like stadium events with 8, 9, 10,000 people in attendance. And they had to pivot because of the pandemic. And as you mentioned, they have not come back yet because now, and here's the thing, they had to pivot very quickly because they had to do this months because they had it coming up, and they had to pivot very quickly. But what they found out is that the costs associated with hosting it virtually is doing it were dramatically reduced. I mean, like massively reduced. And they still did go all out on producing. I mean, they hired people and teams and all that, and they did produce an amazing event still. But as of right now, they have not gone back to in-person yet because doing it the other way. And not only that, they have increased the frequency at which they do these events because they're doing them virtually. So it's been a huge win all the way around. Like, that's just one example, but there's lots of examples of that where this pivot because of the pandemic has worked out really well for the entrepreneurs that were able to do that and that chose to do that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there were some businesses that still resisted. They're thinking that, oh, this is going to be, it's like a common cold, it's going to go away. It didn't. And it
Yeah.
actually ended up hurting their business. They had to shut it down.
Sure.
There were a
Yeah.
lot of businesses. It was like two extremes that I saw. First time in my career, like two very extremes. On one side, thriving businesses that you would have thought that they would die, versus businesses that were thriving before the pandemic, but they didn't pivot and they died, but they were not dying in any way. But that's unfortunate. Like, adapting to change, and that was obviously a major change in our world. Adapting to it, I think that's the kind of the lesson that the world kind of gave you, another opportunity for you to figure out additional things to do with your business. Either you listened or you didn't listen, and
right.
you ended up either hurting yourself or or thriving in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll share a little bit of kind of my journey and something there, that when I've pivoted. I've been in business about 30 years,
Okay.
So every 10 years, I can tell you I'm the decade man. That's what I want to call myself, decade man. Every decade I have pivoted and I have reinvented myself, and when I
All
say
right.
that, it's not going more niche and specialty. It's like completely changing industry, like first 10 years, computer scientist, programmer, hacker. The next 10 years, a hybrid between web developer and marketer. Then the following 10 years, growth hacker and marketing and a business guru,
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
completely pivot in changing industries completely,
Yeah.
not categories, but changing industries. But in each one of those things, I had to overcome different types of things about myself, right? Either some things were related to my personality and who I am, because we all have our glitches, right? That we have our own nuances, right? Some of it were personal, some of it I needed to learn because I didn't know anything about marketing or business or anything. I took 2 courses in accounting and economics. That's it in college. That's all I remember about business. Never took anything else formally. So and also personally, I was very aggressive when I was a developer. Versus marketing, you have to be more thoughtful and empathetic and stuff like that. So that's on the personality side of the equation. In your case, like meeting people and connecting them, that's I know you're natural at it. I'm sure that there are some pain points in that. Some people are not great at presenting themselves. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the other party. To introduce them to XYZ and they go off on you. Well, what are some of the kind of the lessons that you learned professionally and personally about yourself as you had to overcome over time in order to become really good at what you do with strategic partnerships?
Yeah. So, my pivot from, running the business I used to run, which is a training that we did extremely well with. And in that company, we essentially taught marketing, good marketing strategies to up and coming entrepreneurs. And because I had been an entrepreneur who had been learning good marketing for a long time, I was really comfortable doing that because I just felt like for most of the people that we served, I knew a whole lot more about marketing than they did. And so it was really easy for me to hold that role. And with the Tribe for Leaders that we started 3 years ago, that was not so easy for me because I looked at many of the people that we now serve, that they have these businesses much larger than I've ever ran, that they have business that have produced far more revenue than I ever had. I would put them on a pedestal, kind of. And in fact, I even remember having a conversation with Jules at one point around a particular individual. And I was telling her, I was like, I don't know, I don't know if we could really serve him or if we'd really be valuable to this person because, he already had that other business and he sold sold it, and now he's got this new thing, and he's already really well connected, Jules. I just don't know that we give service to him. And comment to me was like, well, sounds like you already made up his mind for him. I was like, all right. I was like, point taken. I said, I will at least have a conversation with him. And so we had that conversation. And then here's the thing. I'd known this gentleman for a while. I'd known him for like 5 or 6 years. But when I had that conversation and said, hey, me and Joe, I just wanted to run something by you, what we're doing. And I, see if you think this might be beneficial for you. And so I walked him through it. He asked a few questions and I answered them. And he's like, wow, Kev, that sounds really great. Yeah, I'd love to be a part of that. And I was like, I was like, well, okay then. I'll get you all set up. And so on one hand, I'm like, wow, look who just joined our community. And on the other hand, it was kind of like Sabir. I was like, oh, shoot, I hope this is valuable for him. I hope we can deliver for him. And so that was me kind of lacking confidence in my abilities, in my gifts. And what's been cool about this is now that we've been serving this gentleman and a lot of other people, and I have had the opportunity to listen in as he shares, and no doubt about it, he is absolutely brilliant at what he does. He's world class at what he does. But at any given point in time, he has very real, just like everybody does, he has very real challenges and problems that he's dealing with and for solutions for. He's got opportunities that he wants to take advantage of, that he doesn't have all the clarity that he needs. And what I have really come to discover is that no matter how successful somebody is, no matter how big of a business they have, no matter how great things look from the outside looking in, like, wow, sure must be awesome to be them because they got all their stuff together. No, they don't. They don't have all their stuff together. And when we just come from a place of service, which is exactly how I reached out to him and exactly why he responded and said, yeah, okay, man, we know each other and this sounds great. And like, let me give it a shot. And like now 3 years later, he's still in the program. In fact, just had a conversation with him yesterday. And I think a big piece of this is just really coming to realize that we're all just people in this world trying to figure things out. We're doing the best we have, and just being of service has been an extremely rewarding and humbling experience as well.
While you were telling me that, one thing that kept on going in my head, two things, right? The number one advice Warren Buffett gives, right, is to read. And he reads a ton. And he's one of the smartest people in the world of investing and stuff like that. He reads all the time. I don't think I don't know how old he is, 85, 87, something like that. It's very old, right? But the thing is, even now at the age of 80 plus, he's not given up reading and learning. So no. People should not make the assumption that if somebody has attained a certain goal in their life or a milestone, like they're a trillionaire, doesn't mean that they don't have the craving to learn. If the ones that believe that they know everything are the ones that go bankrupt very quickly.
That's right.
The ones that know what they know and they know what they don't know, and continue learning. I mean, I've been in this field for 3 decades now. Even now, like I talk to very junior people, very senior people. The thing is, I keep a very open mind, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I've given lectures at colleges and universities, and a student raises their hand and asks me a question. I'm going like, wow, that was a really good question. Not necessarily. I mean, they were looking for me to give the answer, but the question itself was a worthwhile question. Yeah. And even if you look at another gentleman who's much younger than Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, he had to teach himself a lot of things about the auto industry and electric vehicles. He had made only a rocket ship as a young nerd, But the thing is, over time, he just kept on learning, and he's just a sponge and continues learning. and doesn't make any assumptions, and he just rebuilds everything from the ground up. Somebody I worked with and I respect a lot, Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of people know him, Gary V. He had no business being in digital agency business, social agency business, right? And he did not bring any of those baggages with him either, right? Like, if you're in the agency business, you have certain assumptions of how agencies should work, right?
Sure.
In his case, he had zero knowledge. He said, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And it has to work for him. So I think in that example you just gave, is just, there's a lesson there. Like, it doesn't matter how smart the person is. The smartest person will actually raise their hand and say, I have a problem. They may have a domain knowledge about certain thing. In this gentleman's case, he was a very successful entrepreneur. So he said, oh, hands off. He already knows what he needs to do. But the thing is, I'm sure that in his case, he was thinking like, oh my God, the last thing I did was so overwhelming. I want to learn more so I can put a framework together, or I want to know the process better. I want to know, is it better for me to have these kind of partnerships that will make my life easier for the second go around? Let me try this again, but I'm going to do it this time in a different way. And since he stuck around for 3 years, is a testament to your framework that your program works.
Yeah. And and I know that gentleman in particular, he's working on a project right now that he is so passionate about, but yet, like you mentioned, Gary V, he's got no previous experience in this at all, but he's just excited to do it. And so he is wanting to connect with anybody who can shed light, offer insight, feedback, what have you, to help him move forward in this direction that he's wanting to go now. And so, and you're right, like I said, we're all doing the best we can with what we have, and that it doesn't matter whether it's that entrepreneur just starting out in business, or whether it's a seasoned, well-established entrepreneur who has a lot of years and experience under their belt. Like you mentioned, they're still trying to just figure out what's next and where to from here. And none of us have it all figured out. I mean, some of us might try to act like we do, but we don't. We don't got it all figured out. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are some professionals too that they think that they could provide the solution, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about certain service providers, and they have not run a business ever in their life. They just know how to service a client. That's it. But they don't have those deep scars to actually say that, oh no, don't do that, do this, even if it means they're getting less fees or something like that. But because it's the right decision to do for that business specifically, or for that individual. One that actually popped a question in my head. When there is person A and person B, right? You're trying to connect them. You need to have a very high level of trust in your network in order for people to trust you that, oh, if Kevin is, do you want to hear that statement? If Kevin is connecting me to this person, it's going to be worthwhile. How long did it take to build that trust, and why should people trust you that you're making the right connections for them?
Yeah, and so, and I'll also tell you, I will preface this by letting you know there have been people that have got into my world where I thought I had that trust with them, where they later, and that's a whole nother story right there. and I've had to deal with that, and I put a lot of weight on my shoulders when that happened, because I felt personally responsible. But what?
Kevin, before you proceed, I think it has to do with managing expectation, and some of it, that managing expectation is not you.
That's right.
They had certain expectations in their head. They played the movie in their head, and it was a different trailer.
Yeah.
When you produced the video, the movie, it was a completely different movie.
Yeah.
Not the trailer they were playing in their heads, but they never shared with you. My guess, that's typically in my world, But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you, and you're right. I do get people reaching out. I mean, just recently, nice enough guy. I didn't know him well, but he had a friend who was doing this thing, and he sent me information. It was an event, and he was like, Kevin, he's like, I know you know a lot of people that might be interested in something like this. Would you be willing to promote it? And we would be willing to give you a lot, a big chunk of the revenue for doing that. But here's the thing, I can't do stuff like that. Even in the event, there didn't look like there was, it looked like it could have been a good event. And if my own schedule wasn't booked at that time, I would have probably gone to the event myself to check it out because it looked good. But the thing is I did not know the person who was wanting me who shared it with me. I didn't know them that well. And the person hosting the event, I did not know at all. And so for that reason, I just had to politely let them know, look, I cannot do this for people that I don't have a relationship and feel that I have enough of a relationship that I can endorse them. So like when I talked about, Brian Kurtz and Perry Marshall, and Brian tell me we're trying to figure out the Google AdWords thing. Well, I didn't even have to think twice. I'd known Perry for a long time. Perry knows the Google AdWords platform. I've worked with Perry in that regard. I've referred him to other people. And so I knew that I didn't have any problem. I didn't even think twice about, you need to talk to Perry. And so, and that's for me what the way it needs to be. I need to have, and I don't know that there's a specific amount of time. What I do know is that the speed of trust is dramatically increased. Meaning it happens way faster when somebody comes through a connection through somebody that I already have a relationship with. I can meet somebody new that if they were referred to me by somebody who I already know, like, and trust, we can hit it off like so fast. And because that trust, there's that conduit of trust, which is the middle person that they and I both know. And so it speeds up that trust building process like so fast. And versus going to an event or taking part in something else, meeting people on your own, that there is no previous relationship, necessarily have any mutual friends or anything like that. And so I don't know there is, in my mind, there is no like, okay, I need to have a relationship with somebody for a year or 2 years or 3 years. I just want to have experience with them that, if I refer them to somebody else and then that person comes back to me and said, man, Kev, that was awesome. And Brian coming back to me, yep, Perry, man, you weren't kidding, Kev. Perry was the guy. That was the guy we needed to talk to. And when I get that kind of feedback, I get to be the hero, and it also confirms that, okay, we're going to keep on referring Perry when the timing is right for that too and stuff. And so it's not necessarily for me a length of time. It's more in how they show up and the trust that I feel I have in them. And like I alluded to, there have been people and instances in my life where I felt trust was there, and they later revealed that it wasn't too. And that can get painful at times. So.
Some people are, even with like relationships, they are very transactional, right?
Yes.
You do this for me, I will do that for you, or I'll pay you, I'll give you 15% commission. Very transactional, right? Yeah. And those specific people, they are successful too, but they're transactional. It's like short-lived. You figure it out. If you're not into transaction business, right? You're not a cash register, right? You're looking for a relationship for over a long period of time because you want them to also deliver value to the network, right? Not just extract value from the network. Then they lose out in the bigger scheme of things. They miss out completely. Unfortunately.
And
people for your business, Kevin. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead. We had a little bit of a lag. Go ahead.
Yeah, people with that for me personally, that doesn't resonate. There's a lot of people who are like-minded that But for me, I'm more of a relational. You talk about relationships and how we can make a better impact in this world. That's the kind of messaging that totally resonates with me. And so there is that different messaging and you just gotta know who you're talking to and what kind of messaging resonates with them, and you're going to attract like-minded people.
Definitely. Now, for every part of my journey, I can always point to the high point, right? And I can point to also my darkest hour. It goes as an entrepreneur, you have your peaks and valleys, and you enjoy your peaks, but you also learn a ton from your valleys. Also, your darkest hour. Given your journey, what were some of the things that you learned, or even what you learned from the people you introduce, or what their challenges are in their journeys? What have you seen a common thread related to the darkest hour in their lives as an entrepreneur?
I don't, we all have these doors, no doubt about it. I've certainly had them. I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs who will share with me theirs. And what I can tell you, as far as the common thread, is that being able to feel like it's okay to talk about the things that are most important to you, and without having any kind of fear of judgment, or like, oh my God, what would they say if they knew that about me? What would they, if they knew that I was dealing with that? What would they think? They knew that I didn't always stuff together, and I didn't know all of it. And the fact that none of us do, none of us know everything, have our stuff together. We have at any given time, like I said, very real problems and challenges that we're dealing with. It didn't feel comfortable to openly share about some of the most pressing problems that I had. It just didn't seem like the right environment to do that. And so I have always tried to curate the right environment so that other people have that space and that ability to be able to share about what's most important to them. Because like I said, we do all have dark hours. I mean, I remember one of my dark hours, well, in 2000, I started hosting the live events, and from those, I started offering being a connector for people, but without realizing it, I put myself in a situation that, over the next couple of years, 35 people had invested $25,000 for me providing that service. But the way that I was doing it, it just got to the point where I cannot do this anymore. And it got ugly. It got ugly, and I didn't know what to do. All I knew is I didn't want to bring on any more clients. I didn't want to keep it going that way, but I didn't know what to do about it. And a friend of mine really helped me out with that, and helped me. And she was like, Kevin, you're just out of alignment with who you are. You get in alignment with who you are and how you want to show up, and things will start flowing. It'll be more profitable. It'll be more enjoyable. And people are just going to be attracted to you when you do that. But when we're out of alignment, man, that's when stuff can really get dark for us.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the episodes this season, I talking about alignment or misalignment, I used a really bad analogy. It was meaning, I meant to use it, because it's a very stupid analogy. It's like misalignment is like being a vegan butcher. You cannot be a vegan butcher. You can't.
No.
So if there is anything, whether you're providing a service that you are not thinking about how you want to scale it or still deliver a high value, right? Or you're not that person, you should not be doing it. And when there is a misalignment, then that leads to aggravation, mistrust, any of those kinds of things that that I mean, even when we are talking about like your employees, right? If you have employees and the person is doing something that they hate, right? They don't want to be doing it, but they're doing it because it gives them a paycheck and it pays the mortgage.
Yeah.
That person is not happy there. You're not going to get the most out of that person, period. And that's just an example. But also there are entrepreneurs that get into certain types of businesses that they are in no business to be in that business at all. They should not be in that business. So if there's a misalignment, I think emotionally and mentally, it actually hurts you in the long run, right? In the short run, you're getting aggravated, you're angry at everybody, and stuff like that, versus, in the long run, it becomes part of your skin, and it actually ruins you in a long run, like mental health and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at Tribe for Leaders and all the members you have, I'm sure that there are certain folks that are perfect fit for Tribe for Leaders versus people who are not. And we are talking about strategic partnerships here, right? And making connections. What types of people are? I mean, one we ruled out, right? If you're transactional, don't bother, right?
Yep.
You can do it on your own. Go on LinkedIn or spam somebody with an email. But if it's what does that right fit look like, or what is not a good fit for like strategic partnerships, and what types of strategic partnerships make sense from your perspective?
So right fit for me, helping somebody, and for doing strategic partnerships, for starters, you obviously you need to have an offer that is already converted. Because for me, on my perspective, I simply don't have the time or bandwidth to help people with and you know what? You wouldn't want me trying to get your offer to convert. That's not my expertise. And so for me, in order for me to make connections that are valuable for people, there needs to be an offer. You need to have an offer that's already converting. You also need to be somebody who, like you said, is not transactional, but you are somebody who understands the value of relationships and understands the value of treating other people well, of delivering on your promises. You need to have a track record of getting results for your clients is another big thing. You need to have, you need to be somebody who is about contribution first. I am, when you get a community together where everybody is about contribution and giving first, it gets to be on the receiving end as well. If anything, what I have found is that the entrepreneurs I tend to attract, they're great at giving. They love giving. And if anything, they can use some exercise in expanding their receiving muscle, and up to more receiving from others. So those are some of the things there. But when you have those kind of qualities and you can just show up and be yourself, there's no, you don't have to do a big sales pitch or anything like that. You're just having a conversation with somebody and finding out, can I help you? And if there is alignment there, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, and the right people are going to say yes to what you have to offer because they see the value and the benefit of it for themselves.
Definitely. Now, you also, just like this show, you have your show, $1 Million Relationships, and it's a podcast. By the way, with This Week with Sabir, I've learned plenty. I can tell you from the now it's like 55 plus episodes. I've learned plenty from phenomenal people like you, and that are incredible wealth of knowledge and treasure trove of knowledge, in their respective areas. What's the biggest lessons you have learned from doing that podcast?
I'll tell you, so that has been, excuse me, that has been hands down the most amazing experience I've had is running this Relationships podcast. It has allowed me to have conversations with entrepreneurs focused around a specific question, which allows them to show up and share a side of themselves that most people never get to see because they've never been asked this question before. It's around relationships, their most valuable relationship. And so some of the discoveries that have come to from this is that for some entrepreneurs I've interviewed, it has been a really emotional experience as they honor this individual who has had such a profound impact on their own life. And as a result, they're like, man, I can't wait to share this with with people in my life and the person that I just talked about, as well as other people, because I want to honor this person. Another gentleman pointed out, he's like, Kevin, I listened to a couple of your podcasts before the interview because I just wanted to get a feel for what you're doing. And he's like, and it really got me thinking, Kevin, man, for a guy like you, what an awesome tool this podcast is. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, when you're making connections, you've now got all these interviews done. They're like 20 or 30 minutes. You can you're wanting to connect somebody. You can just say, hey, I want to connect you with someone. So why don't you go check out this interview that I did with them? And if you like the way that they show up and who they're all about, and I want to connect you, and here's the reason why, let me know, and I'll get you guys connected. And I was like, you know what? I never even thought about that.
That's a good idea.
And he's like, yeah, Kev, anybody you're making connections for, you should require that they do this interview with you. And I'm like, good point. And so my guest, like you, Sabir, I have learned so much from the people that I've interviewed and pointing out stuff like, oh, I never thought about that at all, but hey, good, man. so thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you learn when you do shows like this, you learn about yourself, and you learn about, and sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. Somebody else has to come in and say, oh, this is incredible. Why don't you do X, Y, Z? Go like, oh, that's a good idea. I never thought of it. Because the thing is, you're so immersed in the business of doing the podcast and generating the podcast and producing it and all that stuff. You're in the business of it, right? You're not like looking from the outside in. Somebody with a critical eye or thought can say, oh, Kevin, go and do this. This is great. That's a great idea. Because now that video interview is the connector for you.
That and what was interesting, that gentleman, after we did the podcast interview, he shared with me some of the stuff that he was working on. And I was like, you know what? I know just the person that can help you with that. They were actually getting ready to go into another round of funding. And I was like, I know just the guy to talk with. I'm going to shoot him an interview and see if he'd like to get connected. He watched the interview and he did want to connect. So those two guys had a conversation because of that. And so, I mean, I'm really grateful for the people that show up that way for me and just point things out that, like you said, I didn't even notice that, but thank you. I'm going to start doing that. So.
Sounds great. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your journey and all of this wisdom. It's my requirement to ask every one of my guests, what is your number one $100,000 expert insight into strategic partnerships and making connections?
I'll tell you. So here's the thing, and I alluded to it before, but I'm going to give everybody a really simple exercise to do, because the big thing that I've discovered is this thing called active, genuine appreciation. And I reach out to people on a daily basis and just let people know one thing that I genuinely appreciate about them. And I use, text messaging, I use Facebook messaging, whatever platform. And a lot of times I'll do it in a recorded message so that they can hear my voice in the influx of my tone and all that stuff. But I'll tell you, every one of us have a phone with contacts in our phone. And what I want to challenge your listeners to do is go through your contacts and do this in a 24-hour period. Send 10 messages. It can be text messages, what have you, but send messages to 10 people in your life. It can be friends, it can be family, it can be business associates. And in that message, let each of those individuals know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. And don't ask for anything in return. Don't even ask for a response in return. Just send out some love. And if you will do that with 10 people in a 24-hour period, that's enough that you will get to feel this. You will get to have this experience. You will get to see responses that come. Experience is different, but there's not been one person that I've ever suggested this here that did it that didn't come back and say, Kevin, that proved the point. I am going to make this something that I do on a regular basis, because I will tell you, no matter how successful somebody is, no matter how big of a business they run, nobody on the face of this earth gets too much appreciation. And appreciation will unlock amazing doors in your life and in your business.
I think that's an incredible insight. I mean, I'm going to definitely put it on my to-do list. I'm going to try it.
Good.
I'm a scientist, so I like experimentation. So I'm going to experiment for the next 8 weeks and see what I get out of it. I'm sure that it's going to be phenomenal. Yeah. Kevin, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you sharing your journey with us and with my audience and everybody else. Thank you to the audience that tuned in live. There were some questions that we didn't get to because we got so immersed in the journey. But definitely, when we post this, we will respond to some of the questions. And if you're checking this out on a recording, thank you for viewing it. And check out any shows that you have missed on your popular platform. You can just go to. You can just follow this link if you missed any episodes. We have had 55 incredible episodes of this show. Kevin, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Sabir.